She was been on Jordan Peterson's podcast.
I know. I listened to it.
Oh, that is sad. I didn't know you were into self-harm. That's a shame.
I listened to it for my work. You know, that's one of the things I did this week, actually, Elon. I listened to Jordan Peterson's podcast. It was terrible. They're both seeing who can do more word salad than the other one. You know, she's stuck in this podcast circuit, I think because she's trying to capture these voters who care more about ideology maybe than they do about policy. But she just talks herself into weird kind of segues and then doesn't really explain them. Like, she talks a lot about how she's a Christian, a cultural Christian.
Okay.
She says that culture is upstream of religion. To me, that sounds all quite dog whistle. You know, what is a cultural Christian? Like, Christianity is a religion.
Yeah.
It's all very strange. She's very anti-immigration. She talks very passionately about how she hated woke people at university and got in lots of arguments with them, which, you know, is not a good basis by which to select your next prime minister. But yeah, she's just stuck in this kind of podcast circuit, never getting a newsline across. She's not being interviewed by proper journalists. And I do think that makes a difference. They know how to craft a narrative and get a headline. And if you're just talking to Jordan Peterson for 2 hours, I mean, who cares?
It's all just like, you know, internet arguments and not even up-to-date ones. Do you know what I mean? We've moved on, Kemi. We're not talking about the National Trust anymore. We're talking about Luigi Mangioni's loafers. Like, come on, get with it.
And, you know, the anglerfish. You know about the anglerfish?
No, I don't know about the anglerfish.
Coco, you really need to make sure you're
not really my scene.
You need to make sure you're well briefed before we record, okay? Because the anglerfish is all over TikTok.
Oh, is it?
So anglerfish,
the new Mudang.
The new Mudang, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
So they usually live 2,000 meters below the surface, but one was caught surfacing like in Tenerife the other day, and it just become a Gen Z meme, an obsession. So there's loads of footage of this anglerfish with beautiful piano music, people saying like, if you don't believe in yourself, be more like this fish who, you know, took their last moments in the sunshine. People are saying this is the Gen Z zeitgeist. You know, this fish captures how lonely and isolated Gen Z feel and is a kind of beacon of hope in a world of Kemi Badenoch and Jordan Peterson.
Wow, okay.
And she's not even mentioned that.
She's not even mentioned, what kind of, what are you doing? You're not online enough. But on a serious note, James Cleverly, he must be rubbing his hand together, right?
James Cleverly is really interesting, right? Because the other sort of successors, I guess, are Priti Patel, who was sat next to Kemi Badenoch in that clip. And then there's Robert Jenrick, who is, you know, we have lots of thoughts on Robert Jenrick. But they are trying to make themselves known and quite vocal. Robert Jenrick is always chiming in about various culture war issues. James Cleverly is keeping his powder dry. He's not really doing much. I think he's trying to disassociate himself from Kemi because when it all goes Petong, which it probably will, he can jump in as the next Tory leader. And I genuinely think James Cleverly is someone who Labour would be pretty scared of.
Because we've spoken before about how it seems like Badenoch has just sort of seen Nigel Farage and said, I'm going to emulate that. Implicit in that is this idea that like Farage is brilliant, but the latest YouGov poll shows that there's a bit of a decline in reforms numbers from 27 to 25%. You know, this like Trump-Farage bromance or whatever unrequited love thing that's going on, you know, it could be starting to hurt him. I mean, what do you think about Nigel Farage's potency right now?
The vast majority of people in the UK support Ukraine and they don't really like Trump and they definitely don't like Musk. Surprisingly enough, British citizens don't like it when people try and interfere in UK democracy from other countries. Yeah, it is funny, isn't it? So Farage hitching his wagon to Trump and Musk in the way he did was always foolish because they're erratic, they're ego-driven, they're not going to be your loyal friend, and they were always going to. I mean, Musk did turn on Farage, as we saw, but, you know, Trump's...
Do you think that's why I'm getting loads of Rupert Lowe content?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because Musk loves Rupert Lowe. I have heard other people say that as well. And, you know, Musk is known to try and alter the algorithms to get his content front and centre stage.
We should also mention the election result in Germany as well. So the Conservative CDU, led by Friedrich Merz, won the most seats and is likely to form the government, taking 30% of the vote. But the big winner in terms of voter gains was the far right, the AfD party, led by Alice Weidel, which won the support of 1 in 5 German voters and nearly doubled its vote share. This is the biggest result for a far right party since the Second World War. Are there lessons to be learned for us over in the UK, Zoe?
I think definitely. I think one of the biggest things we should take from this is that far-right movements can and do radicalise over time. So the AfD, when it was initially created, was a Eurosceptic and economically liberal party. Over pretty much a decade became a sort of overtly fascist party. And, at the moment here in the UK, Reform is obviously distancing itself from Tommy Robinson. But I think we need to remain vigilant about how quickly things could shift. Richard Tice has denied ideological alignment with the AfD, but some figures in the party, so the chair Zia Yousaf, has already expressed interest in learning from them. So already we're seeing within Reform, there are different ideological shifts happening. And that's a pretty influential, the chairman's pretty influential. Could we see Reform move even further right? And I think that's a pretty scary thought. The other obvious point for all of us to learn is that ignoring the far right doesn't stop it. So, just trying to dismiss the AfD as extremists didn't stop it from rising. Even in Germany, where the real memory of fascism is so fresh, the only way you can counter far-right parties is strong alternatives, not just criticism. So don't just ignore them, present real policy solutions. And yes, immigration is something that they all kind of rally behind, but that's just snake oil. Really voters are, they have concerns, real material economic concerns. And it's easy for the far-right to say it's because of immigration, but proper progressive parties need to say, we're going to have economic solutions to these issues.
Yes. So this seems like a good opportunity to think about Labour, actually, because yes, of course, we've been talking a lot about Ukraine and Trump, but there has been a few positive stories for the government. So last week, they met their commitment for bringing on 2 million more NHS appointments. We also heard about £270 million of culture funding too. But this news is not cutting through these kind of economic solutions that, arguably could be a counter to far-right power. It's not making it. What's happening here?
Yes, I think there's a few things. The first is that there is that sense of things have gone so badly wrong in this country that even those little slices of good news, people just kind of think, okay, there might be more NHS appointments, but why can I still not get one at my GP? Or why is my mum still on an 8-month waiting list to get a hip replaced or whatever? People will be thinking, well, I can't afford a train ticket or I can't afford my energy bill. This week we saw energy prices go up as well. I think those kind of tangible things sort of neutralise that good news because people just think, I'm not feeling those things in my pocket. I think there's also a problem with Labour's messaging, which has just been we've talked about that before, but it's been so dour. And it's really hard to come back from that if that's the kind of tone you set your government off on. But I think they just need some big, bold wins that really change people's lives. I mean, so in April, there's going to be 750 schools that get this new trial of breakfast clubs. That's going to be something that actually, hopefully, we can immediately see makes life better for kids.
Yeah.
And hopefully, in a year's time, there'll be some research that shows their attainment or their productivity was better. And that could be a good thing. But again, it's just these little slices of things don't seem to actually compensate for the bigger picture of local authorities going bankrupt or the NHS being on its knees or people feeling like they've got no money and the general breakdown of, communities and people feeling unhappier. It's just really, really hard. And of course, the general kind of news agenda just being so focused on the rest of the world going to pot, I think, dampens anything because people think, great, £270 million for culture, but what if we get nuked in 5 years? You know?
Well, look, I think maybe Labour needs some help with their PR. One organisation they could be taking tips from are the Climate Change Committee, who this week created, I would say a relatable way of measuring our climate change impact. And it is kebabs.
Kebabs.
They've created a kebab measurement system. Yeah, so the Climate Change Committee has taken the humble kebab and given it to us as an understandable metric for our meat consumption and has suggested that Brits need to drop their meat quota from 8 to the equivalent of 6. So we eat the equivalent, apparently, of 8 doner kebabs, and we need to go down to 6.
Okay, I'm going to show myself as somebody who hasn't eaten a lot of doner kebabs. Are there not different sizes of doner kebabs?
Yes, there are.
Right, so
not enough information.
Kebabs, it's like, it's a bit of a sort of after a night out meal for a lot of people, isn't it? It's become part of our, our late night food.
Well, not for you.
Because I come from Yorkshire, always had a pie after a night out. I'm not even joking. There used to be the pie shop.
Yeah.
I shut down now, but we always used to get a pie. So if they told me I had to have 6 pies a week rather than 8, I'd be like, of course, that I can visualise that.
Right, okay. I love that you fulfil every Yorkshire stereotype.
Oh, yeah.
That's really sweet.
Got my whippet waiting for me outside, my flat cap.
You keep it in the bag.
Yeah.
Some keep hot sauce, not you, Yorkshire tea.
Yeah.
Anyway, though, I do actually genuinely think it's a really great way of drawing attention to this issue. British people love kebabs. All of it was to draw attention to what the UK needs to do to meet its net zero commitments by 2050. So by 2038 to 2042, the majority of homes will need to have ditched their gas boiler for a heat pump, switch to an electric car, and of course, eat a few less kebabs.
Okay, good. Well, I'm just going to carry on eating my pies and drive around in my electric car and, talk about how great my hip pump is.
It sounds like it's like the 2025 version of Park Life, doesn't it? Driving around in my electric car.